that doesn't get you fired up, then we need to take your pulse. Welcome to our celebration of the 88 national champions as we continue here at Furman to do just so many different things to remain engaged with our fan base. I am Dan Scott, the voice of the Paladins, and we are just incredibly happy to have you here for this celebration. Those of you who join us on our Lunch and Learns, you'll notice that things are a little bit different because we're in a webinar setting as opposed to an open Zoom setting. So there's no chat function, for instance. However, there is a Q&A at the bottom if you want to submit questions for our panel. We will be more than happy to answer those as we go along. We have a very distinguished panel of guests here today, and those of you who were logging in as we were in the moments prior to that highlight video playing to open this up, got a little bit of a taste of the camaraderie that still exists between these guys, some of which haven't seen each other in years. But joining us here on the webinar, Jeff Blankenship. Jeff, how you doing?
Doing great. Thanks. Appreciate y'all sponsoring this.
Frankie DeBusk is here.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
I think everybody knows George Quarles, who is still here or back here, I guess, depending on how you want to look at it. George, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Dan.
Kelly Fletcher is with us. Kelly, good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
Julius Dixon.
Hey, glad to be here. Honor. It's an honor.
David Adams.
Thanks, Dan. Good to be here.
And Steve Dugan.
Good to be here. Awesome.
Good to have you. The young lady who really did all the work to set all this up, I don't think she's going to be vocally joining us, but you may see her on your screen, Sarah Sabo. Yeah, let's give her a round of applause because she has really, really worked hard to pull this together. The other face you see there is our director of marketing, Ty Osborne. He also has done an incredible amount of work to help pull this together. And over the course of the next hour, we're just going to have some fun. I'm going to try to talk as little as possible, which is unusual for me, I think, as most of you know, because we want to hear from you guys. And as I mentioned, and Jeff, I'll kind of start with you because you were involved in kind of pulling this thing together as well. As one by one, as some of these guys logged on, even though maybe you haven't seen them in years, that camaraderie, I mean, it was instantaneous again, wasn't it?
Yes, as expected.
You started picking on one another and everything.
It's just a very close-knit group, and it was an honor and very, very special to have been a part of our group. And no matter how long time's between us, we each know that we've got the other we can call or rely on for times of need and times of celebration. Just great people.
When you look back, and I'll kind of throw this open for the group and you can jump in as you want. When you look back at everything, obviously winning the national championship is the pinnacle. You can't do better than that in our level or at any level, winning the title, being the last team surviving that won its final game of the season. Only one team gets to do that. Even with that, though, does that rival that camaraderie that we're talking about here, the closeness that you built in the locker room? Because again, you see that on display here. We were on 10, 15 minutes prior to going live, and it was like you guys had never been apart. Does that memory hold up as much as the championship does, or maybe even more so?
Well, I'll start. Just watching the video, to me, I had chills on my arms and just all over my body. And not necessarily just because we won, but just thinking back and watching Pat Turner intercept a pass and run it in against Chattanooga, or highlights against App State, which was a huge game that year, a game in which we lost Kenneth Goldsmith. And, offensively anyway, that day I remember thinking, we're in trouble, because Kenneth was such a huge part of what we did offensively. but just the memories of just being around those guys, you know, bringing up about Julius popping his head and, you know, having to get stitches and seeing Frankie and, you know, everybody remembers probably an infamous moment a little bit, him getting thrown in the lake his freshman year and breaking his leg, and Coach Satterfield about killing everybody. You know, just those memories are just stuff that you remember always. And, you know, certainly the trophy doesn't hurt either.
Anybody else want to take a shot at that one?
Well, when you run the gassers and the two-a-days and how we had to practice, and the championship was nice, but I mean, the memories were made when we were sweating and bleeding and crying, and you can do it. You can't. I mean, it's just incredible what we've done. I mean, as a group, and how hard we worked. And I mean, it's made life easy. I mean, because it was tough at the time, but it was also fun.
You know, I've been fortunate to be in athletics at different levels for the last 30 years. But every time you talk about the accomplishments that we've all had, it always goes back to our 1988 national championship team. We were very close-knit. There was a lot of tough times or a lot of challenges, and we overcame a lot of adversity to find ways to win. And George mentioned in Pat getting that interception. If he don't get that interception, we didn't score that day. So if he don't get that interception, we don't beat Chattanooga. We probably don't win a conference championship nor a national championship. And I tell this story, and I'm genuine about it. We had the best defense in the country. We don't win a national title if we don't have the best defense in the country. When you win the national championship game 17-12, it's obvious that you're better defensively than you are offensively. And hats off to those guys that made it happen on the other side of the ball. We might have got a lot of publicity, but if we weren't as good defensively, we don't win the title. And that always seems to come back when we're talking about all the things that we've accomplished over the years. It focuses back to the fact that we were a part of something special. We were part of something that was a first for many, many of us. And it's one of the greatest things that ever happened in my life.
9 points a game.
Is that what we were?
No, that's what defense gave up, 9 points a game.
Yeah.
Correct me, Blanket, it wasn't 9.5 points a game?
9.3, I believe.
Yeah.
It's amazing how you would remember that.
Well, you know, there's a story I've heard about Blankenship, so I want somebody else to answer
Here we
this
go.
question. Okay.
Here we go.
And it had to do with either the last team meeting after the 87 season or the first team meeting around spring practice or something. But the way I hear it is that Blankenship basically said something to the entire team, and I don't know the exact language he used, so I'm just going to, this is how I heard it. Look, I got one more shot at this. The seniors have one more shot at this. We ain't doing the things that caused us not to win in the past. And we're going to do, this is how things are going to go in this season. And that's apparently how things went. I've heard that story about this guy. Somebody tell me.
Man, I can tell you. I'll
Okay,
tell you
David.
exactly what he said.
We're on a family-oriented
We
show
are.
here. Okay?
You know, but because you've got to set the stage a little bit. You know, when I played football at Dalton High School, we won regions and all kind of real winning traditions. So when I came to Furman, you know, my first 2 years were rough. I mean, it was, what were we, 7-3-2 and 7-4. I mean, I wasn't used to winning 7 games. I was used to 10, 11, 12. And so the first couple of years were tough. And when I'd been on recruiting trips, I think that senior class, before I got up there, I think they had 4 rings. I mean, I went to a social gathering after one of the games on a visit, and they guys had 4 rings on. So I come up and I want a ring. Well, after 2 years, we're just real mediocre. And so we're sitting in spring practice in the team room, and I'm sitting, Kelly Fletcher and I were roommates, and Blankenship steps up and he says, "We're going to win a national championship." He just stood right up, and all the seniors. And I'm ashamed to say what I said. I turned to Kelly Fletcher And I said, he's lost his blankety blank 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 mind. I mean, but what, person I know we all experienced is one of the greatest examples of leadership with this group of seniors. Okay. Jeff, JD, George, they're here. You got Kenneth, Bagwell, Ed Patterson, Fee, Paul Craven, Wayne, but we can go on and on. I'm
Elton, you can name them all.
You can name them all because, they stood up, and that's what great leaders do is they cast a vision. Now, every day after practice, guess what? The same thing was said. Going through the summers, we would get some letters from the captains. The same things were said. When we started back that fall, the same message, we're going to win a national championship. And so, like seeds getting in everybody's heart, for me, where it kind of like, wait a second, here's when we went up and beat Appalachian State, who had won the conference the last 2 years. And I thought, dang, we're pretty good. And then it just, that confidence kept growing and growing and growing. And so, I want to thank you guys that are on here, they're seniors, because that changed my life. And I know it changed your lives. It set an example of how to be a great leader, how to cast a vision. And so, the kudos is to our leaders. They in the face of mediocrity, they cast a big vision. And guess what? We did it.
Jeff, how's that make you feel to hear that all these years later?
It's awesome. I mean, we forget about some of the things that we as seniors had done, but from our perspective, and Frankie talking about the defense earlier, we may have only given up 9.3 yards a game, but offense was scoring 25.7 or something like that range. Numbers were in our favor every game we went into. And Dave, I can't thank you enough for the kind words, but on the same note, Dan, freshmen, sophomores, and juniors, which was a little bit new to a Furman program. I think our year, JD and George, was the first year we even had freshmen dressing, and that was in the national championship game, because those seniors on the 85 team taught JD and George and the rest of us what you're supposed to do as a leader. So I have always complimented the seniors from the 85 team for showing us how to do it. And when the seniors met and decided to hold that meeting that Dave's referring to, it was heavily influenced by them. But throughout the course of a highlight film from any game through the year, you'll see people like Kelly Fletcher having a game of his life in the national championship, Paul Craven. I mean, it goes down the line. Everybody contributed, no matter what class you were part of this team. And I'll go so far and make a statement really quick. John Whitmire, we were going to play the Citadel our senior year, and they came in #1 offense, I believe, at the time in 1AA. And you would have thought we were playing in the national championship Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at practice. John Whitmire goes over there, even though he should be on the travel team field for offense. He comes over to our field on defense, and I swear he was, in my opinion, he was better than Gene Brown. Even though Gene was an incredible quarterback. I'm not trying to slight Gene, just giving credit where credit's due.
And two, that I'll second that emotion, because in 1985, Jeff, along with myself, were out in Tacoma, Washington. And, I'll never forget at halftime sitting in the locker room and the score is 24-6. And my mind goes to, this is my first championship ring. I'm about to get a ring. That's what I'm thinking. A little lowly freshman, never been out of Toccoa, Georgia, but I'm about to be a national champion. And that was etched in my mind. And then at the end of the game, just being in the locker room and just seeing the disappointment. And one of the things that I made a commitment to myself right then was, if I ever got a chance to get back here, we were going to finish. And that's something that those seniors, you talk about Mike Kiernan, Sherrod Weber, all of us decided that, we had what it takes to win a national title. And it takes a lot of luck, guys. Winning the national title is tough. But that brotherhood that we had with that class, and I'll second what Jeff said, because the class of 85 showed us. They paved the way for getting us to establish those bonds. And to this day, and I've, like Frankie, been coaching for 30 years now. And I'm the head coach. And the one thing that I stress every day, if we're going to win it all, which why play if you're not going to win it all? It takes a unity, a team togetherness. That's that intangible that a lot of people don't count for, because time's going to get tough. And the tighter you are, the easier it is to get through that adversity.
I have said to a number of people in recent weeks in conversations we've been having just about that type of thing, that regardless of race, regardless of your ethnic background, regardless of your political leanings, if our country today could have the same type of relationship that a football locker room or a baseball locker room, an athletic locker room has, we'd be in a lot better place right now, because there are guys from all different walks of life, all different beliefs, all different political leanings, but you find a way to get along. And when you get along really well, and you have some talent, something special happens, right?
Absolutely. And it happened when that preseason poll came out in 1988. That preseason poll, and it showed us to finish 5th in the conference. We all took that as a slap in the face. And from that point on, it was on.
We're going to get to the highlights of the championship game here in just a bit. But Kelly, let me ask you this. We're talking obviously about the 88 championship season. The final game of 87, you just clocked the Citadel. 58-13, I think, was the final score. Was that game, looking back on it now, or maybe even then, was that a little bit of a precursor? Did you think maybe something special was brewing when you did that at the end of 87, leading into the 88 season?
I mean, that was a great game, and I think it left us on a good note. It was a positive thing to happen. But I think I got to go back to me where it started is when Blankenship walked in that room and he said, like David said, and you can't say it any better than David said, when Blankenship walked in that room and said, we're going to win the national championship. That's when it started, and that's where it came from, and that's when the light switch came on.
Even before that meeting, Dan, I remember the seniors got together and Jeff called the meeting, and I still got an old T-shirt. Remember those old T-shirts, Jeff? Like Knights of the Round Table, and Jeff was, all these guys are saying great stuff about Jeff, and it's true. Jeff was a great leader. He had a vision that I'm not sure everybody on the team had, at times, but we kind of went along with it. And but I just remember, the meetings we had as a senior group, and they were mainly led by Jeff. And, I remember Kenneth Goldsmith speaking up some, and JD, but it was about, being serious about doing the little things that it takes to be a good team. And, we certainly had, the National Player of the Year, Defense Player of the Year, Jeff Blankenship. But other than that, it was a team. You didn't have a whole lot of superstars, but a lot of people contributed each week. It was somebody else that would have a big game, and we had a good quarterback, and that's what it takes to be a good football team. I've been fortunate to be around some good teams, and I don't know if I've ever been around one that was any better at being a team together.
And can I add one thing, George, to what you said? You referenced a good quarterback. We need to set the record straight. Steve Duggan and I played side by side, and most of those great plays, we turned around and told Frank
Told him where to go.
You need
He
to
was a
talk to
freshman. He
Kenneth.
didn't know what to do.
Plays, didn't we?
He
Hey,
didn't know
it
how to
is-
read a defense or anything.
It is in the 1988. So we're playing Presbyterian in a driving rainstorm.
Oh,
It's like my second or third start. And you're right. I didn't know what was going on, but they lined up in something that was unusual. I don't remember. And that center you're talking about that I'm looking at right there beside you, he turns and tells me to check the red 40. So I checked the red 40 and I turn around and hand the ball to Kenneth. And thank goodness Kenneth was athletic enough to take the handoff, because he comes back to the huddle, and I can't tell you what he said, Dan, but red 40s are checked to throw the ball. I know that now after 6 or 8 ball games later. So blame that one on Dugan. Don't be trying to take credit for me, David Adams.
Yeah, see here again, it's funny how the personalities that developed in that season 32 years later still hold water to a certain extent, because Frankie, I told you when we were setting this up last week, I asked Jeff, I said, Frankie was a sophomore that year. Do you guys still consider him to be the kid? And you know what he said? Absolutely.
I'm sure he said yes.
Yes.
That's right. We saw it as our job to keep his feet on the ground. So
And you did.
yeah.
Hey, give credit where credit's due. We didn't run 48 sweep, but about 65 times a week. So somebody was doing something right up front, and I was flipping it to the right guys behind us to make plays.
The KISS method, right? Keep it simple.
Exactly
stupid.
right.
Yeah, I got you. Hey, Jeff, let me ask you this. You lose to Marshall in the regular season 24-10. And the next week you go to Appalachian State and you beat them 24-9. And they had been, I believe, the conference champions the previous couple of years. Tell me about practice the week after the Marshall game and leading into that Appalachian State game. Anything special happened that week?
Well, you can imagine. First of all, we knew, and I think the numbers reflected in the fact that Marshall scored 24 points. Our man JD there and Pat Turner are 2 cornerbacks, 2 of the best in the country, in my opinion. Both are hurt. They're not playing full speed. Our defense was wounded, but we don't live on excuses like that. And the offense, did the best it could under the situation. So from our perspective, we were focused on healing and what we had to do to make adjustments to stop App State. And there was a lot of conditioning. There was in my opinion, a lot of responsibility on the seniors not to let the team get down. In other words, we had to focus on getting back on top of our game, and we had to focus to make sure the team knew they had the confidence to go on the field to win that game. Because again, we lost at Marshall and we lost at Clemson. Now we're going to go to App State. None of these are at our field, which, we know some of the records we did that year at our field. So we had to just make sure the focus was there. The coaches did an outstanding job, as always, game plans, motivation, et cetera. But I think one of the secrets to our team was the way we responded internally. And of course it showed at App State. The biggest negative to App State was losing Kenneth. So,
yeah, which obviously we'll get into it. But Julius, to kind of paraphrase a little bit of what Jeff said a minute ago, that week, would you say that there was some attention getting going on after that Marshall loss?
Absolutely. As easy as it would have been to just kind of drown in your sorrows, it was an effort to look, guys, this is not who we are. We're not going to make any excuses. We didn't get it done, but we've got to tighten our shoelaces and pull our sleeves up and go out here and work because this ride is not over. And to a lot of it is belief. It's a lot of stuff that's said in athletics. I mean, we all want to be national champions. Everybody can't be a national champion. It's believing, because if you believe and you got the leadership, and George touched on it earlier, we had a bunch of role players. And to this day, I haven't talked to him in 30 years. But Patrick Baines, Patrick Baines came in with us. He's one of the original freshmen in '85. Patrick Baines was our quarterback starting that '88 season. Frankie came in and took the job. Patrick stayed with us the entire time, never complained, never said anything to anybody, came to practice and did all the things that he was supposed to do. It's that kind of role that you just accept it and know in the end that it led us to where we ended up going. So kudos.
Y'all ready to watch some highlights from that championship game?
Let me add one thing for that week of practice. The defensive guys probably forgot about it, but the offensive guys didn't forget about it. That Thursday, we had a crappy practice, and we had to stay out there about 45 minutes extra.
I remember that.
A lot of daggone defense got to go in. Hey, run it again. Take them boys in. We're staying out here. So,
well, but before we get to the highlights, let me ask you about something. 32 years later, and really, when you take a football locker room or any locker room, and we always talk about it being a microcosm of society to a certain degree, really, in one sense, fortunate and obviously unfortunate that we lost this player, but only one. But the player we lost, Jeff Bagwell, you know that he would love to be here, but you guys were talking about it before we got started on this thing. The other guy who would love to be on this webinar today is Coach Satterfield.
Mm-hmm. Without question. Our head coach I think for most everybody on this call, our head coach for 3 years while we were there, because JD and George and I came in under Coach Sheridan, obviously. But Coach Satterfield and Coach Johnson, and Coach Satterfield will never be forgotten. And he was the head coach and leader of our team going through that year, and super individual, super influence. I actually lived with his son, Sean, so got a little extra connection there.
Frankie, tell me a little bit about John Bagwell.
John Bagwell was just one of those guys that you could rely on no matter what the situation might have been. He just was he's a great football player. Hard-nosed, physical, might not have been the most gifted or most talented, but always found a way to get it done. And we talked about running 48 sweep a lot. It was because of Bobby Daughtry and John Bagwell back there that we could flip it to, making some big plays. And John did a great job catching the ball out of the backfield. He was the leader of that group. Of course, he had to deal with Dwight and Bobby, trying to keep them in line. He had his own chore. I actually think he lived with you too, Ship. Didn't he used to live with you all in the same location?
Yes, he did. He did. If you wanted to find John after a game, look for a TV camera.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That's talents. If it was attention, John Bagwell was going to be right in the center. And I'll tell you this story right here. We flew back from Pocatello, and it was early in the morning when we got to the airport. And so as we're walking in, this big flashing light, it's blinding. I didn't know what it was, realized that it was a camera. Bagwell just happened to be next to me, and he had a national championship trophy. I reached over and snatched it from him. And that's when my story came to fruition right there. I can't even remember what I said because we had a celebration on the way back. Seniors in the back of the plane back there. But Bagwell was always the center of attention. Love him. He's a great guy to be around. And like you said, if you looked at him, you really wouldn't think physically. But when you watch that Joker play, he was a giant.
There's
I want to just
picture
add one
of him
thing
in action there.
About John. And I don't know, Ship, one of you guys might remember, he had, and I don't know if it's a national championship game or the game before, he had a turnover.
Yeah.
Okay, my parents were sitting beside his mom and dad in the stands, and his mother just it broke her. She was just bawling. And my mother went over to console her, just, are you okay? And she shared that was the first fumble in all of high school and all of college he'd ever had. That's pretty phenomenal. One heck of a player.
He's the only running back in the country that wore that in forearm pads as a lineman. I remember those too.
Hey, George, before we go to the highlight video, one guy we're not going to see in the championship game highlight video on the field anyway is Kenneth Goldsmith, because he was injured, as was referenced earlier in that Appalachian State game. Just tell me about him as a player, and then how did he contribute even after the injury?
Well, as a player, I really feel like he would have played in the NFL if he hadn't gotten hurt. I mean, we had my freshman year, these guys remember John Dry, and they called him Cruiser. I mean, he just run over people. They talk about 48 sweep. At that time, the fullback would go, and it would be just a terrible collision between the strong safety and Kenneth got to where he was as good or better than John in a lot of ways. He played with such great pad leverage, and and Coach Hendricks and I will talk about old guys that when I say old guys in our group that could still play in today's game, and Kenneth's one of those. He would translate for sure, as most of these guys would, but Kenneth for sure. He was just such a talented guy, and strong and tough. You watch some of the highlights against Clemson, they're not tackling him, and very talented. And then after he got hurt, he was still there helping those other guys that, had to play fullback. I remember Dwight had to move to get some fullback reps, and Ron Sherwood, and like I said, he was still a huge part of it. And like I said, he and Jeff, I think they were the original two captains that year. You had one on offense, one on defense, but Kenneth was definitely one of the best players that I played with for sure.
Yeah, Hunter Reed tells me that he was a fullback with tailback speed.
No
That's
doubt.
a pretty dangerous combination.
He could go.
He could run. He really could.
All right, let's
Does look good.
How about blocking? I mean, that guy could block.
Yes.
Oh, veer drill.
He was one
I'm
of those.
glad
He
I
had
was
natural.
on offense.
Yeah, he had natural leverage. I mean, he could run the same speed with the leverage to go blow up the linebacker. He's running as fast as he was when he had the ball in his hands. He just had great leverage. He could, I don't know, I could still see him running with that flat back, and whether he had the ball or not, he was a force.
Well, after the Clemson game, Dan Ford acknowledged that they didn't understand how he flew under their radar. They would have recruited him.
Sure.
As Kenneth was that good, he would have gone to the NFL without question.
Speaking of the Clemson game, before we move on, when we were showing that highlight video at the beginning, everybody on this screen right now, when that big hit was delivered, when Clemson was running the option, everybody still 32 years later went, "Ooh."
Rod
Weber.
Woody.
Ball player.
Yes.
I remember
Yeah,
two
yeah.
plays. I remember that play, and I don't know if it's the playoffs, but Marshall ran a throwback on the opening kickoff, and he was gone. The guy was gone. He was going to score, and Sherrod wasn't that fast, but for some reason that day he tracked him down, kept him out of the end zone. I remember that.
Hey, Frankie, that's true. But what you fail to realize is Wade Sexton was on the kickoff too. Wade got in the chase and got hurt, and Sherrod and Wade rotated, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Sherrod got up and he was patting his head. I said, hey, I said, hey, buddy. I said, you got to stay in. I said, because Wade is hurt. For 2 plays, he was over there. Please don't run it over here. Please don't. So he could catch his breath. But that was a big play for Sherrod to run that guy down and save that touchdown up there at Marshall.
All right, before we get to the video, I just want to say we mentioned that there's the Q&A feature here. Because we've got so much going on right now, basically what we have on that Q&A is people just jumping on and saying hello and doing some different things. We'll try to mention them. There are a couple of questions there, but I noticed some of you guys on the panel have already gone on and answered some of those questions privately. So if you want to continue to do that, go ahead. But let's get into the video. I want to thank Hunter Reed for putting together the run sheet, and Byron Apt, our director of video services here at Furman, for putting together the different highlight melt. And we're just going to take it quarter by quarter. We've got between 3 and 5 highlights from every quarter. So let's start with the first quarter right here at the beginning of the game, and we'll see Glenn Connolly getting ready to kick off. But all 3 of the highlights we're going to show here are going to feature Frankie DeBusk passes, and one of them is going to be to George Quarles here in just a minute. But Ty, let's go ahead and roll this. Guys, feel free just to kind of jump in. Frankie, especially you, as this thing starts playing, and let's talk a little bit about it.
Well, one thing I want to say, when you go back and watch the videos, our kickoff team coverage, outstanding. Mike Kieran and Taylor Quarles, George's younger brother, several standouts. Just you'll see him swarming to the ball and doing an incredible job on kick coverage.
All right, Frankie, first offensive play of the game for Furman.
I didn't think Coach Satterfield would call it. We talked about it all week, but fortunately when he made the call, I was excited, nervous, scared. Of course, Dwight don't pick up the linebacker right there and gets my head knocked off. Great catch.
6
by
load
Donald.
pass.
Great catch by Donald. Great way
48
to
yards
start.
to Donald Lipscomb.
Freshman.
He made some great catches in the Marshall game to get us there. Big time, 3rd and long.
Yep.
I hung him out to dry like they killed him. He made some great catches.
Another look at it. When you're so successful running the option like this offense was, the ability to start in the option look and drop out of it like that is so dangerous. Of course, you have to be able to complete those passes too. All right, this is later in the first quarter. I believe this is going to be DeBusk to Quarles for 12 yards.
Oh, yeah. Great catch, GQ.
Couldn't drop that one. That's right there. That's money. We only had about 4 routes, I think, the whole year, didn't we?
Yeah.
The passing game was not exactly exotic, you know.
Well,
You know, that right. I say that play right there, the touchdown by Greg Key. If they had instant replay, we don't get 6 on that play because I'm not sure I threw it good enough for Greg. Made a great catch, but I think he put it on the ground at the end. But
looked like you were
big plays that year.
Shoot, yeah, man.
Frankie, it looked like you were anticipating some pressure on that throw, kind of throwing off your back foot a little bit.
You're being kind. That's just me being scared and not planting my foot and making the throw like I'm supposed to.
I used to tell him in the huddle. I used to tell him in the huddle, if my man's chasing you, I'm open over the middle, but he never threw it to me.
I've learned to be somewhat diplomatic in the booth. So, all these years later. All right, so 7-3 at the end of one, guys. What's the feeling? Kelly, how are you guys feeling right now?
Well, I think we're confident. The offense is moving the ball. At that point, I think they moved it a little bit that first drive, but after that, our defense we shut them down. I mean, I was telling Blankenship the other day, the success they had in that game was that counter option to the short side of the field. And eventually we got on that one too and put an end to it. And I felt confident as a defense. I mean, we were shutting down their offense and they had a great offense. And then our offense kept moving the ball. So we were very confident.
And Julius, that was the matchup everybody was looking at coming into this game because they were a phenomenal offensive team. Furman was a phenomenal defensive team. So it was a force of wills.
Absolutely, Dan, too. And as I stated earlier, Jeff and I had the privilege of being out there in 85. So one of the things that, was a constant reminder is until that clock says 0, 0, 0, we're playing like it's 0 to 0. And because never again, you catch me in the locker room and you up 24-6 and I'm thinking about it being over and there's time on the clock. So that was an emphasis too, 7-3, let's not go to sleep, guys. We've got to, play harder.
You learn life's best lessons through pain and adversity, don't you?
Absolutely. Absolutely, you do.
All right, let's move on to the second quarter. 7-3 as we open the quarter, and it's talking about that defense. We're going to open up with the first of 2 interceptions by number 50. We'll obviously get to the second one a little bit later on, but Jeff, as this play gets set up here, why don't you take us through it?
Well, it was really their first attempt at a pass on us. And if you pay attention to the rush, the pressure on him, he gets right here, boom, he throws it a little high. And I was just able to tap it around a couple of times and bring it in. I was actually breaking up to hit him more than I was to do the interception. So it was a little high pass by him, and something we were fortunately able to capitalize on.
Ty, when it shows the replay, when Jeff pulls this in, can we do a little stop action here? and Ship, well, no, we can't see it from there, but Ship, you know where I'm going with this. Right there.
Yeah.
You could tell that you didn't carry the ball an awful lot.
I don't think that's a fair assessment.
Hey,
I barely got the ball down before he's grabbing my ankles.
Ball play right here, Kelly. Ball play. I like it.
But these are good examples. I think we had a great defense and a good offense. Okay. But our defense made us so much better by getting us the ball. It was 4 and out and they were punting to us or getting turnovers. I mean, we were set up. And so a lot of people over the years ask, what's the key to winning a national championship? Great offense or great defense? And I'll always tell them, I think a great defense can help out the offense a lot better than a strong offense can help a defense, really.
Oh, we saw back-to-back tackles for losses there.
Right.
Kelly Fletcher and Dean Williams, and then Kevin Kendrick, and that set up the missed field goal. And now here's Frankie going up top to Keith Swilling for 26 yards.
Keith, man, I remember Keith. Yeah, he made some plays.
And we're going to talk about him a little bit later on as well in another aspect of the game. Here's Bobby Daughtry.
My roommate. We go on the road. That's who I was roomed with, me and Bobby.
He's an aggressive runner.
And I'll go back to the role player situation that George and I have touched on earlier. And you see a guy like Dean Williams. Dean started the season, he was an offensive lineman. And he moves over to defense because our starting nose guard, who was Wayne Bird, one of the seniors in our class, got hurt. So now comes in Alan Edwards, who's a true freshman. And if you remember back, Georgia Southern had an All-American center. I mean,
Dennis Franklin.
Yeah, he was killing folks the whole year. And Alan Edwards stepped up to the plate and ate his lunch. So role players is what got us through with the good leadership or great leadership from our captain there, Blankenship. I tell you, everybody had their role. Everybody stayed in their lane and together made this thing go.
And Edwards was a freshman, and Franklin was an All-American center for Georgia Southern. And the play of Edwards in the second half was a big difference in that ball game.
Alan Edwards, we talked about Kenneth being able to play on Sunday. If Alan's 2 inches taller, he's making millions of dollars because he dominated when in the Citadel. When we beat the Citadel, Alan was creating major havoc. Center wasn't able to get off to get to the backers. Same thing in the national championship game, but we're not giving him his true love because he could play the game. He was special.
Sure. Yes, sir.
I'm glad I only had to block him in practice.
All right, so we saw the Glenn Connolly 36-yard field goal at the half. It's 10-3 Furman. David, what's the conversation at halftime in the locker room?
For me, it was
Get me some water.
It was all kind of surreal. They've got a legendary coach. They've got a legendary program. We all know what happened in '85. I can assure you, nobody's flying high. I mean, we're focused. We're staying down. we're going to play this thing to the end. You know, I don't really think, you know, you get so dialed in. I mean, it wasn't until the very end of the game, you know, we're going to get to that. I think everybody looked up and said, hey, we're going to win this thing. So, I mean, we were, had the pedal to the floor, focused and ready to come back out.
And Julius goes back to that lesson that we talked about, that painful lesson in '85
yeah.
that he mentioned.
Absolutely. We all knew that. Trust me.
One thing too, I would like to, I mean, we've talked a lot about it, and it's absolutely true. We had a lot of role players and a lot of people that contributed, but you know, our coaching staff they were great. You know, for instance, that reverse play there you saw, I mean, that was pure fear. I'm thinking, hey, all week long, Coach Johnson was like, this is your play when it comes. Hey, I mean, he told me. And I can tell you right now, if I don't get out there on that play, I'm putting a white jersey on and going to the other side of the field because I'm afraid to come over there and talk to him. So our coaches were great. I mean, they contributed a lot.
Fear is a wonderful motivator sometimes.
That's right.
No, we have talked a lot about Coach Satterfield, and he did a great job. But the nuts and bolts to that national championship year was Coach Bobby Johnson's tenacity and believing in our kids and getting us lined up right and just constantly doing the little things that he did for us to be successful. And Kelly, Coach Johnson I was fearful. If I threw an interception, I wanted to go the other way. I'll never forget I don't know who we're playing, but the clock's running and I run out of bounds. He meets me as I run out of bounds and lays into me. And I'm just thinking, man, we just got a first down. What's wrong with this guy? But I understand now as a coach, we need to keep the clock running. But he put the fear of God in me as well. And I respect him a lot still today. But he did a hell of a job keeping our defense doing little things we need to do to be successful.
Go ahead, Dave.
I just want to add one thing. All this talk about like going to the other side of the field or whatever if you got in trouble. Then we had a guy that did that. His name was Mike Kiernan. After wedge busting, he would never know who he was or where he was, and would often wander towards the other sideline.
I had to bring him back a couple times.
Yeah.
Especially Chattanooga.
Back in the days before protocol, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody else felt this way on defense, but anytime I ever made a mistake, the first thing I did is I looked over to the sidelines and Coach Johnson's eyes were looking at me because he knew everything that was going on. And if you just didn't do your technique right, he was looking at you. I mean, that happened to me, you know, anytime any mistake I made, you know, that guy was on.
And too, Fletch, I'll add to that. We were up in Marshall, and we had a combo call. We were either on zone, play cover 3 or cover 5. They started off with a solo receiver. They motioned the twins, so we checked. So I was supposed to be the flat defender. William Hall, the safety behind me, was a 2 deep. Marshall ran a post wheel. I was on the wheel, but the post was wide open. So I saw the quarterback looking. I follow him. They throw a touchdown. But I go in and block the extra point. And I'm feeling pretty good because, you know, now I know that it was William Hall's fault. Coach Johnson meets me about the hash. And he is letting me have it. And I've never, ever, ever said anything back to Coach Johnson. Number one, I was fearful all my life. But number two, it was just a respect factor. Never said anything back to him, but I was determined to let Coach know that he was wrong. You're chewing the wrong person. You need to go get William Hall because that was his fault. And to this day, they still blame me. Come back, Mike Barber. That was not my fault. So I walked to the other sideline. I mean, down to the up where the offense was. And Coach Johnson is right behind me, and he's ripping me a new one. I finally get back down there and sit down with the rest of the defense. He gets on the headset. He talks to Coach Fowler up top. Coach Fowler tells him exactly what I was trying to tell him. He reaches down, touches me on the knee, and says, "I'm sorry." Well, now I'm feeling some kind of way because you don't need to tell me you sorry, Coach. I was wrong. I'll be wrong, but that just goes to show how intense he was, and we believed that if we played at the intensity that he coached at, nobody would beat us.
And, and dealing with coaches, especially in that era, is kind of like being married. She may not be right, but she's never wrong.
Amen.
So, all right, let's move on to the third quarter. It's 10-6 at the half. We've got, I think, 3 cuts from the third quarter, and they're all on the offense. 2 of them featuring Dwight Sterling. You get a look at some of the halftime stats here. They're 0 for 6 and 0 passing yards. They had run for 126 yards, but you've almost doubled them up in total yardage and leading despite turning it over a couple of times. So this first play, 24 yards right up the gut for Dwight Sterling. Running behind a couple of meatheads right there in the center of the line, right?
Yeah, you're right.
This was a great drive to start the second half, and for the offense, you hear them talking themselves down, but man, they scored when they had to, and that's all we could have ever asked. And to take it straight to them, that had to put a dent in their defense as far as their inspiration, and their offense knew they were going to have trouble scoring on us. So
here's Bagwell on 3rd and 5. Picking up 12 yards and a first down to give you a 1st and goal. And here's Dwight Sterling again for the payoff. And all of a sudden it's 17-6 at the end of 3 quarters.
Tell him to get off the field. He's laying out there wanting somebody to love on him, JD. He scored a touchdown, run off the field.
Good block there, dude.
look at that surge up front.
61. Did you make your block there, David Adams, or did you miss on the trap?
It was a trap.
Yeah, but did you make your block?
Yeah, I
He didn't have to. His guy ran out away from him.
Come on, Ship. Don't take up for them guys.
Oh, he was scared today.
Let me tell you something. You ain't got anything to say, Frankie.
All right,
Just
so
the fact
there's
that you can walk, still walk, you need to thank Dugan and I.
There ain't no doubt about that, brother.
all right. So 17-6 after 3. You've increased the lead now. Still not feeling it yet, right?
Mm-mm.
No.
Nope.
It could have been 30-6. It still wouldn't have felt it.
All right, well, let's move on to the 4th quarter. The rubber is about to meet the road here in just a minute. Take a look at several highlights as we get the 4th quarter underway, talking about Allen Edwards and the job that he did on Dennis Franklin. I think we're going to see that right here on this first highlight.
He fumbled the ball on snaps so often that night. You knew it was because of Allen's play.
Exactly right. Mm-hmm.
But then again, all the other defensive linemen are up there. Watch
Dino.
Boom. Looks like a pinball getting back there.
What a play. What a play.
Big play.
PC.
Hey, George, as an offensive guy watching your defense play like this, what are you thinking on the sideline?
Just don't turn it over. Defense was so good that, offense, like I said, we just tried not to beat ourselves. And you didn't have to make a lot of plays. We could run the ball. And you had a bunch of good running backs. Dwight was big. I forgot to mention Billy Stockdale. Billy Stockdale filled in big that year too at fullback. And, like
How big is this right here?
Watch them play and compete. Huge play here. My roommate Wade Sexton made a big recovery there, so that was fun.
They're going in for a touchdown, and Sexton recovers the fumble, and now you got to come off your own goal line. Here's Stockdale. You mentioned him.
Billy, yep.
For 11 yards.
Oneonta, Alabama.
And that worked so well. Decided to give it to him again.
I think we ran the trap or the dive 3 or 4 times in a row.
Oh, we did. You boys getting it done up front.
Great center, guard. There's old belly play. Yep.
This time he goes for 17.
Y'all still running that today, George, aren't you?
Trying to. We don't run it that well.
Well, Frankie, I don't know if you remember this or not, but they were keying on our plays, and I told you to call a fake red, a dummy red, and they ran.
Yep, and they went with it.
Yep.
And here's another big defensive play, a sack from Dean Williams. You got to call that a coverage sack because he had time to throw. There's just nobody open, and then finally the pressure gets to him.
Oh, Dean, that was Paul Craven.
Paul Craven, yeah.
I saw Paul Craven. I saw
Death
Brian
dealer.
Pitts too. I saw the pit bull making some noise.
Oh, yeah.
The death dealer and the pit bull.
All right, so we're gonna stop the fourth quarter right there for just a minute. I want to talk for a second about something that Jeff brought up to me earlier this week. You had some issues in the punt game in that championship game, and I think one even got blocked. But in that fourth quarter, in a very tough situation, Jeff, you pointed out a block that Keith Swilling made to enable you to get a punt off that ended up being a big play in that game that maybe kind of went unnoticed.
Yeah, if you're going to run that play, if you watch the punters here, then there's the up back. That was Keith, number 86. They came at it again and surely would have blocked it. One of the two people rushing would have blocked that punt. Had Keith not jumped up horizontally, blocked one with his feet and the other with his upper body. I mean, that's something you don't coach or teach. That's just incredible football instinct and survival.
Well, that would set the stage. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
We got to say a few things about Keith.
Okay.
I mean, he probably had the best hands I had ever seen.
He did.
And he was capable of being a tight end receiver. I don't really know what he was, but he could also play guard. And so he was definitely multifunctional, but best hands. I mean, if you got the ball near him, he caught it.
You did.
And he's right. He's a football player. And like Jeff said, I remember he laid out. He blocked two of them, and because they brought more than we could block. And that was, kind of one of those, never went in the stat sheet or anything like that, but huge play.
Well, and that brings us to the play that I think everybody remembers, the play that sealed it. We talked about the first interception for Jeff Blankenship. It's 17-12. Georgia Southern's in desperation time. And here's what happened.
Again, is the rush from up the middle. They've been trying to force this play. And look there at the time remaining on the clock. I always thought that was unique because that was Kenneth's jersey number, 35 seconds left.
I've been waiting 32 years to get this off my back, so I might as well get it off now. That was a great play, and that sealed the victory for us. But if you would go two plays before this, it was third and short, and I turned to the back, and I told Will Hall, I said, they tried to throw this stop route over here earlier. I said, cover me over the top. I'm going to jump this stop route. Will Hall said, yeah, I got you. So they snapped the ball, and I go right to the flats immediately. The receiver is gone. He ran a stop and go. I looked and saw him going. When I looked back, the ball was coming, and I did the best Mike Tyson, just beat it up. Had I caught that interception right there, that would have sealed the game, and then that would have put me on that big float that Jeff Blankenship prayed all these years later. So
is that why you were a defensive back?
Absolutely why, and I'm still sour that I didn't get on that float at the parade, because had I picked that interception off and sealed the game, then that would have been me, Blankenship.
You would have got on there, JD.
Is there a more iconic moment in Furman football history than Jeff Blankenship lying flat on his back with his right arm and fist thrust in the air?
No,
that's when you knew, right? Finally, you could say we did it.
Absolutely.
Of course, we can't hear what Coach is saying right now, but you guys have all heard this before, and he was so understated.
He's saying, I can't wait to get them boys back to the field house to get them over to the tomato garden.
We had two planes on that trip. We were doing everything we could to get on the right plane, JD. You remember that?
Yeah.
I'm just going to leave that for everybody to understand what we're talking about.
You're right. Us young boys had to ride on the other plane.
Yeah. And two, that probably started, and Jeff and I were out in 85, and I distinctly remember being in the hotel watching them load up the stuff to go back home. And one of the things that they were loading up were cases of champagne that we should have been drinking by winning that game. So after the game, it dawned on me. I said, man, we got some champagne somewhere. So I took off running to the locker room. It's no champagne to be found anywhere. And I'm really a little disappointed, a little dejected. I'm happy because we won it all, but I wanted, you see people win a national title, you want to see them spray the champagne all over. Kevin Kendrick comes to me. We're in the locker room getting dressed to go to the airport. He said, JD, said, my dad gave me this. You think we ought to pop it and shake it up and spray it on everybody? I said, no. Snatched it from him, popped the cork, and got the Knights of the Round, passed it around, and then gave him the bottle back for a memento.
Oh, God.
How about that? Had to go all the way to Pocatello, Idaho to do it. But there's the payoff.
Yes.
Big time.
I've never understood why you go to Idaho to play Georgia Southern.
I know we got off the plane in Pocatello, Idaho. It was cold. Thank goodness we were playing indoors.
Remember, the wind was about 80 miles an hour. A guy with the Indian headdress.
Yeah. Remember they had those big meals, and the Georgia Southern players got to eat that rattlesnake and everything they were fixing. But Coach Effie wouldn't let us eat it.
Yeah.
No, but you remember we were killing time. They took us to this old mall. And before we got off the bus, Coach Guest was standing out there with an envelope full of money and passing out $5 bills. I said, what am I going to do with this? He said, don't spend it all in one place.
That was your per diem for lunch, I believe.
Yeah, that was our lunch per diem. I mean, we're playing for the national title and you passing out $5 bills? Come on.
Well, what was the scene like when you got back home?
It was awesome. I remember landing there and getting off the plane. There was so many people there. It was either very late or very early because the time changed, but there was a bunch of people there. It was a great celebration and a lot of media were there. Great times.
Fans were awesome. They met us out there on the tarmac pretty much. So that's when JD and John were doing their thing with the trophy.
And then, of course, you got what every team loves. You got the victory parade. Every championship team wants that victory parade, and you got it.
Well, and
Look at Don Clardy there. He's about 12 years old, isn't he?
Roommate.
That Jonesy, Mike Jones,
and Dr. Roper,
Brian Pitts, David Cobb,
Ken Berry.
Wait a minute. One of those pictures was David Cobb?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right there.
All right.
Oh, my goodness. I didn't even notice that.
Well, that parade was organized by Vince Perone, who I don't think Furman had a bigger fan or anything that could match up to what he offered, not just to the program and the university, but to us as football players. Incredible man and great family.
Hey, did y'all peep them pants? Did y'all peep them pants Dixon was wearing in the back of that convertible?
I didn't see it.
Oh, me and Goldsmith had it going on. Look at them pants.
Kenneth looks like a Secret Service agent. Right there.
Julius, it's a good thing that you don't like attention.
And times have not changed. Not one bit.
Hold up, Joe.
Dwight.
D. White.
White. That's awesome, boy. It's awesome. Awesome.
Fun times.
Good stuff.
You know, most of the time when you get a former group of players together and they start swapping stories, the old adage proves to be true that the older you get, the better you were. But in this case, you lived up to it because you were national champions. So you don't have to worry about bragging, right?
Well, I don't know. Julius throwing Will Hall under the bus there.
He did. I don't know. JD, are you reading the comments?
No,
I'm reading.
Pat Turner's calling you out right now. He's watching from Kuwait. He's calling Will, waking him up in the middle of the night, saying JD's throwing me under the bus.
Well, you see what Pat put on there first. Pat wanted somebody to put up JD's transcript so we could see how he got to school.
Hey, the only way I go for that if they put his side by side. So tell him I said that. No, I'm tired of getting blamed for Mike Barber got me the first game. That second game, it wasn't mine. I've been blamed for that for 32 years, Will Hall. You know we had a combo coverage.
Hey, I want to ask you guys something that Jeff and I talked about earlier this week because I'm from West Virginia. You guys got to play in the hockey rink at Marshall, at Old Fairfield Stadium. You didn't get a chance to play in the new stadium that they built years later. Describe for those who don't know what playing at Fairfield Stadium was like at Marshall University. Somebody.
Intense.
I can't tell you what they called me in pregame warm, but for 30 minutes, one of the things I remember, one side was yelling, Frankie, the other side was yelling, sucks. And then they wanted to know if I got my arm at Kmart or Walmart. It was abusive. It was abusive. It was I guess jealousy. It was a great environment. I wish, we all enjoyed playing in that environment, but it was loud. Couldn't hear each other. That's why I threw those 4 interceptions, Ship. Tell you, boy, that's the only reason I threw those picks, because we couldn't hear each other, but it was a great environment for sure.
And it started before you ever got to the state. When the buses pulled up, wherever those buses parked, they were in a fence out there partying.
The fairgrounds.
Right beside it. Beside where we dressed.
They flocked right over to the fence, and it started as you got off the bus. And intense is right.
And once you put the helmet on, you never took it off, did you?
No.
Well, we were instructed not to leave the locker room without the helmet on because of objects that might seem closer than they appear.
Well,
How sweet was it when we win the game in the quarterfinals to leave that field? That was big time, because we had devastated that bunch.
Well, they would take tweezers and take a penny and then a lighter, and they would heat the pennies and then throw them down at you. And you were sitting on the bench. I mean, literally, they were sitting about 8 feet above you, so they could throw all kind of stuff on you.
We had to cover the water cups with towels because they were spitting in the water.
Yeah, I remember that.
But Jeff, didn't you tell me that you ultimately got one of the best compliments that you ever received after a game up there?
I did, because everything these guys are telling you is what we lived and experienced. But after that win, I remember walking down and past or through the end zone, and one of their fans yelled down and just complimented me on being a good linebacker and wished us well in the playoffs. So when you get a compliment like that from such a intense crowd, it means a little more.
Yeah.
I can remember leaving the field as we went out through the end zone, and actually fans standing up and clapping.
I remember that too.
It was a heck of a game.
Yeah.
I remember leaving the field in the end zone and Kenneth Goldsmith over there giving them everything that they were giving them. All right, come on, bull, let's go. Come on, let's get out of here.
We could obviously keep going and keep going and keep going. But we've got to wrap this thing up. We're at about an hour and 15 minutes now. So I'm just going to give each one of you guys an opportunity to say a quick final word. And I'll start with Frankie. Since you were the kid, we'll start with you and we'll work our way up the chain.
I'm just very appreciative to be a part of this today. It's brings back a lot of memories and things that I remember when someone else, JD, starts talking or trying to get all the exposure. He's still trying to be the ringleader, but he's reminding me of things that happened. And I'm just very appreciative of everybody at Furman that put this together. You know, I was a young redneck kid from Greenville, Tennessee, when I got recruited to Furman. And I still tell people today, it changed my life. It put a completely different perspective on getting a degree, what it's about being around good people, having the opportunity to be a part of a championship team, you know, just having a chance to be as successful as we were. That didn't happen by accident. There was a lot of hard work, a lot of blood, a lot of sweat, a lot of tears. We developed friendships that will last forever. And again, I'm just so appreciative of being able to even be a part, and thank you for the invitation today. And spending it with you guys has been a wonderful hour and a half.
You know, if you guys would kind of, look up and look to your left and right, this would almost be like the Brady Bunch open, the way that I'm looking at this thing. Where you look at each other. Julius, final word, man.
It's just surreal. It's still surreal. My roommate 32 years ago was Fee Cowan, and we'll talk to each other about this story, but our bags never got unpacked for quite some time because we were uncertain about whether that was the right place for us. And we stuck through it, but we stuck through it because of these bonds. Frankie talking trash about me, but it's my relationship with Frankie the Bus that kept me at Furman. It's my relationship with Jeff Blankenship that kept me at Furman. My relationship with David Adams that kept me at Furman. And I'm so glad, because had I not stayed at Furman, then I wouldn't be on the platform that I am right now, trying to get this team to live up to the expectations that we were able to achieve. So thank you guys. I love you guys. Anything I can ever do for you, please let me know.
Kelly?
Well, I'd just like to say that, this has been fun hearing everybody. I love hearing from JD. It's been great. And everything that's been said is, something I take with me every day. When all these people come together as a team, and you got the coaches that, like we said, they were great too. But it was that's what it was. It was a team effort. Enough cannot be said about, and if you go back and watch the plays, everybody contributed. Everybody on this team contributed. And when you're positive and you got a leader that puts that in your mind that you can do whatever you think you can do, and you believe in it, then you can accomplish it. So it's just a great lesson in life that, it'll stick with me. And it's been it's very special to me. And I think it's special to all these guys too. And thank all you guys. I was happy to be a part of it.
George?
Well, kind of echo what Kelly said, just a blessing to be a part of something like this, and just proud to be able to contribute in some small way. And like Kelly said, we had so many guys that contributed, and, nobody had gaudy stats or anything other than Jeff. Like I said, he had crazy numbers, tackles and stuff, but, and being back at Furman now, it's just it makes it even more special than it was, if that's possible, and trying to live up to what that 88 team did, today, which is tough. And, but it's certainly a huge part of highlight in my athletic career. And think about the last game I ever put on pads, we won a national championship. Not many people get to say that.
Steve?
It was just a great group of kids with, we started talking about this, and last night I was thinking, it's amazing after 30 years, I can still name all those seniors that were the Knights of the Round Table. And they really were, they were the keepers of the coffer. They kept us all straight. But we worked hard. And the greatest thing about this whole team was we didn't care who got the credit. We just wanted to get it done. And we had the same goal. So it was a privilege. Thank y'all for having us too.
David?
I just want to say it's great to see everybody. You know, it's just like we went back 32 years when we get together and we have homecomings and all get together. You know, a lot of laughs. Most of what Frankie says is true. Not all of it, but
Hey,
part of it. But you know, it was a life-changing experience. You know, I have probably what I shared, you know, what I started with was, you know, the impact that these leaders and Jeff, you had about, you know, how to be a leader, how to cast a vision. I've talked with other players that played, you know, from my hometown at University of Georgia and Clemson, Tennessee, and they all said we never had anybody to cast a vision. And, you know, I'm in the business world and I have probably shared the story of that first meeting and the vision you cast over 100 times. I was in a sales training event and not really even thinking about, you know, today. And on Monday, and I shared the whole way we won a national championship because it's life changing. And, you know, I can't thank you and the seniors enough. And I think it affected the lives of so many people, and it was a commitment to excellence. And that really, once it got into us, it infected us in all aspects of our lives. And so it was life changing. We had great coaching staff. I'm thankful to stay, you know, close to a lot of them. I know we all are, and definitely a pinnacle experience in my life. So thank you all. Captain, you get the final word.
Very touching hearing these guys talk. And of course, Dan, you and Sarah put together the list on who you wanted on here. And we were able to go get all but one, my buddy Kevin, but he apologizes and sends his best. But I think you see or hear just from listening to these guys, everybody contributed. You know, as a senior, as a captain, our roles are to be the leaders and to do what we did through the season. But, you know, freshmen, sophomores, juniors contributing, maybe didn't start the year, came in because of an injury, or came in, Dean Williams transferred off offensive team. I mean, everybody on our team, even the practice squad, Bruce Getz and the training staff, keeping us together and on the field when we weren't totally out with injuries, but the coaching staff. I also want to recognize somebody that has left us that we haven't talked about today, and that's the great Dr. John Johns. We had the best president in 1AA in the country in 1988 as well. He was a super leader, a super friend of the program, and in many ways made it possible for all of us to be there and share this experience at Furman University, which I still think is the greatest university in our division in the country.
Well, this has been just phenomenal. It's been fun. It's been educational. It's been all of those things and more. And to be able to kind of just sit back and facilitate and let you guys go do what you do. It's just been great to be a part of it. I'm so thankful that Sarah and Ty put this thing together. I want to make sure that I give Hunter Reed incredible props because he made me sound like I knew what I was talking about with some of the things that we were discussing here. Byron for the video work. I mean, just a complete team effort to pull this together. And I'll kind of sign this off the way I signed off our Lunch and Learn on Tuesday. This team won a championship, but championship aside, you're seeing what college athletics is meant to be here. And that is lost so much in what we see going on today. Yeah, we love our sports. We love our big time college football, but the bonds and how you took your experience at Furman and all became successes off the football field in life. That's what the college athletic experience is supposed to be. And this has been a great reminder of that. Thank all of you guys for being here. And how about a big old go Dens for that 88 championship team one more time?
Go Dens.
Go Dens.
Yes.
Thank you all the time.
Thanks, Ty.
Guys, that'll do it.
Thank you,
If
guys.
you guys want to talk to each other, you're gonna have to do it on text. We're done. We're signing this thing off now.
One last shout out. You mentioned Hunter Reed. Hunter Reed made me look really good. I owe him a lot of kudos. He was phenomenal when we were there. He spent countless hours putting everything together to make Furman football special.
He
So
still
thank you,
is.
Hunter.
He still is, Frankie.
Still does it.
He still is.
Thank you again, guys.
All right,
Thanks.
I'll sign it off the way I sign off our broadcast, folks. I'm Dan Scott saying God bless you. So long, everybody.
See you guys.